maybe.
All right, let's go. We're going live to talk about our Wealth Building Wednesday series with Kate and Sheila. And today we're going to be talking about emergency funds. Um, emergency funds and how much do you need for the fund, and why you should not be using your credit cards for an emergency fund, which I think is probably the biggest thing. And then strategies to build it and maintain it. And so Kate's really passionate about this Wealth Building Wednesday series because I'm passionate about it too, because I want people to build the wealth and understand they need to get out of debt. They got to stop being a slave. But Kate is so passionate about it. She just wants to just give value to people, like just pour into you to be able to give you the information that's in her head and give it to you so that way you can make better choices, do better things, make decisions that are different. So I'm just going to let Kate take it away. But before we do that, I got to do this.
Absolutely. The Wealth Building Wednesday series, all correspondence from me and information provided by myself or Money EQ Coach are just that, information, thoughts, and ideas shared. Before you make any financial, tax, or legal decisions, please contact your advisor per your specific situation. Yay.
All right, Kate, take it away. I'm just going to throw up on our screen, just kind of hitting on the topics that we're going to be talking about. So,
Yes.
go ahead and take it away.
All right. Well, I'm often asked about an emergency fund and how to, first of all, what it is, how to build it, and how much do you need. So we'll go through some of that today. There are strategies to earn interest and things like that, but we're going to just stick with the basics today. The first thing is understanding that an emergency fund is money that is set aside in case there is an emergency. And that could be an emergency vet trip. It could be the refrigerator quit and you need a new one, things like that. So the cost of an emergency can range drastically, certainly, but figuring out how much you need is another thing. So it can, an emergency fund can also be covering lean years if you have lean months if you have fluctuating income. So definitely another facet to this. So when you are going to set up your emergency fund, the first thing you need to do is figure out how much you really need in there. How much is it? $1,000? Is it $10,000? Somewhere in between. And so there's a lot of factors that contribute to figuring that out. And it's on a very individual basis, right? So if you are just a single person and you are apartment living and, what have you, that sort of situation, if you have a steady job, then your emergency fund is going to look a whole lot different than if you're a family of 5 with a hefty mortgage and so on. So you can sort of see where I'm coming from on that. So the first step is to take a look at your monthly expenses. How much do you need to cover each month all of the must-haves, right? And the must-haves are covering your mortgage or rent, utilities, gas, food, all of the necessities to life. It does not include Netflix, Hulu, those sort of things, right? And depending, maybe or maybe not, including internet service. It's not, your life doesn't depend on having that, right? If you work from home, your job might, so that might be a different story. But what you really need to do is take a look at your expenses, where your money is going, and what exactly are the must-have expenses to be covered each month, right? Once you've done that, people will say you need to have 3 to 6 months living expenses. Well, the 3 to 6 months depends on your job security too. And if you have a fluctuating income, what that looks like every month to month, right? So Sheila, as a realtor, some months are much better for the real estate world than others, right?
Right.
Like right now, we're coming into the season for real estate.
Yeah.
And we're coming into a season where, like, my business slows down in the summer. People want to go out and enjoy their summer. They go on vacations. This is what they save for, right? So it all depends on what your industry is and whether you are um, whether you have lean months or not. You may not. You may
Right.
have a W-2 job and it may be exactly the same. So
Right.
that's fine, but know who you are and where you're at. Um, the stability of your income also. I mean, are you in a position where if something changes within your company, you're going to be one of the first to go? If that's the case, then you need to probably plan to have a little bit more set aside for that. Risk factors I touched on a little bit. If you have dependents, right, that's going to increase your need for an emergency fund. Health issues, things like that. All of these things combine to kind of look at, okay, where do I need to be with my emergency fund, right? So, and it is a very individual thing. So also, with that is what you're comfortable with. And I would say that's the most important. Some people are like, I'll figure it out. I can always get another job. Da, da, da. And some people are like, oh, no, I really want this covered. I don't want to have to worry about this. And obviously, the healthy balance is somewhere in between, right? So figure out who you are and what you're comfortable with an emergency fund as well. Now, I also just want to make sure that I mention that an emergency fund doesn't just mean cash sitting at the bank. Okay. There are different strategies, and then maybe another time we'll get into all of that on how to generate better interest than sitting in the savings account. Because if you're going to have a substantial stash of money somewhere, you want it to be working for you and not losing to inflation. Right. So I totally get that. But that's another day.
Another topic.
Another topic. Yep. So once you have figured out what your comfort level is and your dollar number you're putting on your emergency fund, I usually suggest, if you're starting out with zero today, as you're watching this, as your emergency fund, then break it down into smaller goals. Okay. Because you want it to be something that you will achieve and that feels comfortable. So if you calculate out that ultimately to have 6 months of your income or expenses covered in case of an emergency, losing a job kind of thing, and it's, $30,000 to $50,000 for an emergency fund, you're going to go, forget that, right? But if it makes more sense to start out with, okay, my goal is to, by the end of this year, have $1,000 set aside for emergencies. You may not be covering the emergency that is a job loss or something like that, but you certainly can be covering a refrigerator issue or things like that. So it's okay to start with a smaller number as your goal, and then just know that as you build and increase it, we'll talk some strategies on that, but as it grows, that you're then being able to cover some of the bigger emergency needs, right?
So would you say this, again, going back to maybe several videos that we've done previously, this is really, they have to have that mindset shift, right?
Absolutely. You have to prioritize when you're looking at your income versus expenses. You have to prioritize for this potential need. I mean, I have yet to meet somebody who has never had the need for extra cash in an emergency, right?
Right.
I mean, just going to the vet these days is
that one's a killer. Yeah.
Any kind of emergency. Yeah. I mean, okay, so for example, my dog, of course, we were on vacation and my son had to deal with it. But my dog, like, ripped his dew claw. They have that one extra little toe or whatever it is, the dew claw. And he basically ripped the nail off it, had to go to the vet. Yeah. $400 later. Right. Wow. So it's like, because they had it. Anyway, that's
as we say, it's life, right?
Right.
Like it's
life happens.
Right.
crap happens. It just
Right.
does. So
Yep.
figuring out how to cover those little things. If you don't have to worry about that, you're going to hold your head higher, right? You're going to be more confident. You're going to be approach everything with a better attitude and more confidence. So, yes, shifting your mindset and making this a priority versus the instant gratification of whatever you saw at Target. Definitely.
That new
Definitely.
shirt's not going to build you any wealth.
That's correct. Correct. Absolutely. So, one of the things for sure to understand is, and I love numbers, obviously.
Yep.
So I watch people and I love numbers. And so with this, looking at where your money goes every month, you work hard for it. You should know where it's going, right? Is it working for you or are you working for it? And when you're looking at that, you need to be honest with yourself, right? And make good choices for yourself and your future. Not to mention, if you have kids, you're setting an example for them too. I mean, kids don't do what you say, they do what you do, right? So,
100%. And you know what? You bring up things that have happened this week. Like we're only Wednesday, and here we've had like we have got to be teaching the next generation exactly what they need to know about money. It's not happening, in the schools.
it's not.
It has to start with the parents and even classes for kids to understand how to wealth build and not be a
Absolutely.
slave to debt right out of school or
Oh,
right
yeah.
out of high school, right?
Yep.
Even before they get out of
Absolutely.
high school. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. So, my kids are almost 23 and almost 21. And they both are still living at home because we want them to build before they
Correct.
move out. So I get the mail, right? Right, wrong, or indifferent. If there's a credit card offer that comes in the mail for them, they never see it.
Nope.
Not in a million years am I going to put them in that situation where they're tempted, right?
Correct.
Now, building credit is a whole other thing, which we're working on with them. So don't think, oh, what's
Right.
she doing? They're never going to have credit. Yes, they do. But anyway, got a little
It's a
sidetracked.
process. It's a step
It is a
1, step
process.
2, step 3, and
Yes,
knowing each part of that step is important and it builds on
absolutely.
each other. So,
100%. So once you figure out your number, you need to figure out, okay, how am I going to get there? Right.
mhm,
So, and I always encourage people to work this into their financial blueprint,
mhm.
strategy, that sort of thing. And if you need help figuring out your overall picture, obviously I can do that. But what you need to know is do you have extra money at the end of the month to save? And B, if you don't, how do you find that so that you can continue to save? Um, and by the way, I would suggest always, always, always 100% to make it automated. I don't care how, if you're on a fluctuating income based on sales and things like that, it should still be automated. You can change it if you need to on a slower month or for a couple of months or what have you. But always, always, always have it an automatic thing. So every month, X amount of money comes out of my checking account and goes to wherever you're saving it. And the first place you would start is a savings account. Um, and like I said before, we'll get into bigger strategies later, but you can always use that to build the dollars, right? So, however, every month much goes in there, make it an automated thing. So it happens, it's going to happen, but it's an automated system, right? So every month the same amount goes in. And by the end of this year, voila, there you're going to have, maybe for the rest of this year, it's to build $1,000, 1,500, whatever. But it's key to automate it. And it's key to look at it like it's another bill because you're paying
Right.
yourself and your future first, right?
And so you're saying, like, make sure that, like, in previous videos we talked about building that budget. So
Mhm.
just make sure it's a line item so that way it's already Like it's already gone out of
Yes.
your mind. Like that you don't have that money, right?
Right.
So keep in mind the mindset shift. I don't have that money anymore because it's going to this. It's
Right.
just that other bill. So
Yep.
perfect.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you're thinking right now, because I'm sure some of you are, well, I don't have money at the end of the month, right?
Right.
I am just making it happen.
Especially now.
Well, yeah. I mean, at one point in time, everybody's been there. We'll just say that. Well, I
Right.
guess not everybody. Most people have been there.
Right.
But the key is to find the little things. Take a close look at where your money's going. You know what the biggest culprit is these little things you sign up on your phone and then you forget about. And then forever and a day you're paying. My husband and I were digging through just because it happens to us too, right? So we were digging through and we found this one thing that my daughter had put on her phone probably 6 years ago. $8 a month. $8 a month, $8 a month, $8. Shame on us for not finding that sooner, right? She's like, I don't even know when I put that on there. So what's that tell you, right?
And that's how we get in debt because these credit
100%.
cards are literally the worst thing they could have ever created
Yeah.
because you set it and you forgot it and you
Yep.
literally forgot it. And that's
100%.
again why you should be looking at your credit card statement every month
It,
and going, do I need that? Do I need that?
and even you go beyond that though, because this was just an Apple bill lumped all into other stuff, that we do have, right?
Mhm.
So we never
Yep.
saw it as just this one little line item
Wow.
until we were like, what is all this from Apple? Because we have things that we do use and we want to pay for,
Mhm.
but it's stuck in there and it just was there. So it wasn't even ever a line item on the credit card that would have, said whatever
Wow.
game. It just was Apple, blah, blah, blah.
Sneaky.
Right. Totally. So they're out there. So go through those kinds of things. Another thing is to, take a look at stuff you have. We all have stuff around that we don't have a use for anymore. Sell it on Facebook Marketplace. I mean, I have seen stuff on there that people sell that I think to myself, really, somebody's going to pay? And they do. People pay for it.
Yep.
So absolutely, I guess one man's trash is another man's treasure, right? So if you've got things that you're not using, sell them, whether it's eBay, Facebook Marketplace, Poshmark, whatever, one of the things, go ahead and
Create your own store. You could literally create your own
correct.
store
You
on
could
Facebook.
sell
If you have enough stuff in your house, you could create
totally.
your own store.
According to my husband, my basement could be a store. For real. So, but anyway, so it's one of those things, and it's, do you want to put the time into that? It's well worth the time to do it. It doesn't have to be hours and hours on end. It can be 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there, and just do it and get it gone. You'll feel better too, because you'll have less crap laying around.
Mhm.
Yeah, get rid of the unnecessary expenses, the subscriptions. You can even negotiate, and this we'll talk more about next time on debt. You can negotiate the interest rate. So they've been going up. We all know that. So how do you negotiate that? And we'll touch on that next week for sure. Dining out less. I mean, one of my best friends owns a restaurant. And after COVID, there was this big, massive rush. Everybody wanted to go out and eat a lot. So that's now kind of starting to taper back a little bit. Cut back on how much you're eating out and how much DoorDash you're doing and all of that stuff. It's very easy to just say, okay, this is the easy thing. I'm going to do it and I'm out, right? I'm getting dinner delivered. I don't feel like prepare for that ahead of time. Have things that you can just quick throw in the oven or whatever when you don't feel like making dinner and cooking, so that you aren't tempted by spending that money for DoorDash or going out or whatever. So just plan ahead. And then, you know what? It feels great when you go, I'm so glad I did that. And you're proud of yourself that you planned ahead and you had that in the freezer or whatever. I mean, when I make lasagna, I make 2 pans. I stick one in the freezer. I made
I do
vegetables.
that with meatloaf.
Yeah, I made vegetable soup yesterday.
Mhm.
Half of it went in a Ziploc in the freezer because you know what? It's super easy to pull out and defrost and make when I don't feel like making dinner. So just
Well,
plan.
and I was just thinking, we were talking, I think it was the very first video that we did. When you go back and you look at how much you spend for food, right?
Mm,
Going out to eat and all that
yeah,
stuff as a line item, you're literally going to save that amount of money per week and then
yeah,
per month and then
yeah,
for the entire year. And
yeah,
once you realize how much money you're saving, you're like, hey, that's my emergency fund, right?
100%. You just have to
So,
reallocate it. You just have to have that D
yep,
word, the discipline to say, okay, I've saved this much
yep,
and I'm allocating it to the emergency fund.
that,
Right. And
yep,
that's the first thing, I mean, I understand people are saving for retirement and maybe college and whatever for kids and so on and so forth. I get all that. But saving for a cottage up north when you don't have an emergency fund is silly.
right.
Right.
I agree.
So just make it a priority because um, that's what you're going to really need first, right? That's
Mhm.
why every single financial advisor, coach, anybody out there that is worth their wool is going to tell you that the first thing you need to do is pay off debt and build an emergency fund.
Yep.
There's a reason for that. So,
Yep.
yeah. Um, I was starting to, and I don't know, I trailed off, but I wanted to share a little bit of information as far as, statistically, most people in the United States, and when I say most, I mean only 35-40% of households have um, a budget or strategy where they're tracking their income versus expenses and know where their money's going. So with that, you have to think about, okay, why is that? Right? Well, I've got some ideas and I believe just from my experience in working with people is people don't like to feel like they can't do something, right? Feel like they can't go to Starbucks, feel like they can't go out to lunch, feel like they can't do all these things. And we've spent a bunch of time talking about, if you didn't go out for dinner or if you had it in the freezer or whatever. And I'm not saying across the board cut it out 100%,
Mhm.
but create for yourself a challenge. Maybe it's for the month of March, or we're in it now. So I get the month of April,
Right.
we're not going to go out for dinner. And the money we would have spent on that, we're going to put towards our emergency fund. And then May could be something else, right?
Mhm. Yep.
May, I'm going to, sell all of these whatever on eBay and that'll go towards the emergency fund. And I'm also not saying don't ever do it. And when I work with people on creating their strategy going forward to pay off debt and build wealth, it also incorporates having money set aside for fun. Because if you take all the fun out of life, you're going to do the work your strategy for about a week. And then
Right.
you're going to be like, I'm done with
Right.
this crap.
Exactly.
Right. So
Kind of like a diet, right?
yeah, 100%. Exactly. So that's why the diet industry worked into cheat days, right?
Right.
So, and for everybody, the amount is different, but generally around 10% is what I look at saying, okay, set that aside, not in the emergency fund, not in, retirement, not in da 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 da. But that's fun money. And maybe fun money is enough to go out for ice cream, or if you save it up, it's enough to go do this or go out for dinner once a month, whatever it is. But set aside some money for fun. And I'm not trying to take all the fun away. And I'm not telling you to eat beans and rice because nobody's going to do that for the long term, right? We want to have a strategy that is going to be conducive to you doing it for the long term, because that's
Right.
when you're going to see the real results. And it
Lifestyle
does take
change.
time.
Yeah.
And I understand that. And it takes discipline. But if you do it and you work on it, then you will see the results over time. So you just have to imagine what you're looking forward to the future and check yourself and make the good choices.
Yep. I agree. I definitely agree with that. You got to start somewhere, just like
Yeah.
you would on any type of thing that you want to change about
Mhm.
your life. You have to start somewhere. It takes the first step, And then the second step, and, just, reach out to Kate, because you can't do this on your own. You don't know what you're doing, and that's not a bad thing. Don't ever look at those things as bad things. Look at those things like, hey, I need to learn this and I need to grow. That's how
Mhm,
I'm going to grow. And I need to go through this little bit of a hard time. It's only a season. It's only temporary.
mhm.
That I need to go through this little bit of a struggle, this change in life
Yeah,
that I have to do in order to get on the other side of this. That's going to be so amazing. I mean, I
absolutely.
wish people would understand that it's only temporary. The
100%.
struggle is only temporary,
It
right?
is. It is, absolutely.
Yeah.
It is, and if you can set your mindset that it's going to be for this amount of time, and set yourself that time,
Yes.
right? Challenge
100%.
yourself for a month, or challenge, and then the first step is the hardest,
We
right?
we should do a challenge. You know,
We should.
we should really put something together where we do a
Yeah,
challenge. So we'll
we
have to
can
talk
do that,
about that offline.
absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
And then why our credit card, I mean, I know why, and I mean, if you've listened to any videos previous to us talking, you would know
Yeah.
why their credit cards are not emergency fund, but can you just share a little bit about
Yes.
that?
So oftentimes people lean on a credit card for an emergency purchase, right? Or expense. And from the outside looking in, doesn't sound like a bad thing. However, what can happen is, if it is an emergency enough, a big enough emergency, you're accumulating debt. And the goal is never to do that, right? And the emergency could be bigger than what you're going to be able to pay off at the end of the month. And typically they are. So when you use a credit card for whatever the emergency is, now, if it's a vet visit for $400 at the end of the month, we're blessed that we can just pay that off, right? That's not an issue. Um, but for some it is. So you don't want to continue to carry that debt and incur the interest, which is then making your emergency more expensive than it should have been, right? Then it should have just been the 400. You're then incurring the interest each month on it. And that can over time significantly change your wealth trajectory. I
Mhm.
mean, it can really put a bite in it. And mindset typically is, well, I've got this on there. This little bit is not going to make that big of a difference. And it just eases you into a, a bad mindset for bad financial decisions when you start okaying the credit card, right? Now, they would love for you to do that because that's how they make the money.
Right?
but,
Right?
but it's not best for you, right? Um, it can also impact your credit score over the longer term, right? If you're not paying it off. And that affects all sorts of things, right? That affects how much you pay for your car insurance. It affects getting a mortgage. It affects all sorts of things, right?
Yep.
So
It's a domino effect.
it
Totally a
is
domino effect.
very much so. So really, those are the main things that I'm concerned with when people say, oh, well, I have a credit card. Well, you do, and that's fine, but it really is not meant to be for emergency, you know,
To bail you out of things.
situations.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Um, you know, don't get me wrong. I have credit cards. I use them to get Delta miles. I use
The only, like, if you
to
look
pay
at
them off.
if you look at the word credit, that's
Yeah,
really what a credit card is to build credit.
it
That's
is.
it. That's the only reason that credit
It's
is
not
out
to
there, credit
use
card.
credit. It's
Right.
yeah,
It's to build that credit so that you can get that thing. That's it.
absolutely.
It's not to use it to,
Absolutely.
pay this emergency and that emergency, and,
Right.
feed your flesh because you want that shirt or you want that thing
100%.
or you need the new phone or whatever.
It
Like
is a
those,
very slippery slope.
it is,
And for many, it starts out as, well, I had to buy a new fridge
right?
or whatever it is. And then, uh, you know, go out for dinner. We'll just put it on the credit card. Does that make that much of a difference? Well,
Right.
it does, because it adds to the debt load that you carry and how much interest you're being charged, and it snowballs in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
So while it's tempting to say, I'll just use my credit card for an emergency, it's a slippery slope, and it's definitely never the best idea.
Yeah.
Okay. Definitely better to get a handle on.
To build that fund, to
Yeah.
build that emergency fund, and
Absolutely.
don't even take that completely out of your mindset. I don't have a credit card
Yeah.
to use for an emergency. Like,
Correct.
that's not an option for me.
Right.
So, I mean, we keep hammering the mindset thing because it's so important.
It is.
It is so important. So,
Absolutely.
yep.
And
Well,
once you start working on it, I just want to say, once you start working on the mindset, you'll catch yourself more often,
yeah,
and it'll become more of a habit and ingrained in you, and the neuroplasticity will take over, and then you'll be like, oh, I didn't even have to think about that. And I've made the right decision, and you feel good about it, and you move along, and you start to stand a little taller and hold your head a little straighter, and it does. It just starts to snowball, and everything gets better.
yep. That's how mind shifts work. You know,
Yep.
you make those small changes, you catch yourself when you're thinking differently, and yeah, it's awesome. Well, Kate, I can't thank you enough for just so much value that you pour out to people. I mean, from the bottom of my
Thank
heart,
you.
I'm learning as much as everybody else is learning. There's certain things, like I said before, that I know, but you're just a wealth of information. I appreciate you so much.
Well, thank you.
So next, 2 Wednesdays from now, because we do it every other Wednesday, our Wealth Building Wednesday will be about debt payoff strategies. Oh, the true cost of your debt, which is like, this is going to be a very important
We will be crunching some
topic.
numbers.
Yes. So your good debt versus your bad, and then I'll be promoting the next week video after that. So,
Yeah.
so I wanted to just share Kate's information with you. Like I said, if you find value in this video, please reach out to her. What you see on here is what you get with Kate. Like, she's not like any different here than she is in real life. So she's just down to
Totally true.
earth, great person. So reach out to her. Her information, her QR code is right here. And then if you have any need for any real estate needs, I that's what I do. I'm a homeschool mom. If that's your thing, I'd love to connect with you. But we're just here, just trying to educate everybody, and that's all really we want to do, is just
Yeah.
make sure that we're educating the next generation, even this generation of people, on
Absolutely.
so.
Absolutely.
All right, well, go have yourself a wonderful day. Thank you
You
all for tuning
too. And everybody else out there.
in. Thank you. Have a good day.